It's taking longer than I thought.
Totally fine. I'm here. I'm just grabbing my water. It will take 10 seconds.
Welcome, everyone. I am Christina from Kale. We're so glad that you have joined us for this session, Unlocking High School Credentials for Multilingual Learners, an inclusive competency-based approach with Dr. Katie Brown and Alex Thome. Before we get started, I'd like to share a couple of quick housekeeping tips. Attendees are muted, but please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. The session is being recorded and it can be accessed for about 90 days after the conference. And please feel free to fill out your session surveys at the end of the session. And with that, I'd like to welcome our speakers to begin the presentation.
Thank you very much. We're super excited to be here. I'm Katie Brown. Alex, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Alex Thome.
And today we're going to talk about how we've been working together over the last couple of years to create a flexible competency-based pathway to help multilingual learners rapidly access a high school credential. So I'm here with NGen, and NGen's mission is to remove English as a barrier for immigrants, refugees, and speakers of other languages. And Alex is here with Penn Foster, and he can tell you what Penn Foster's mission is.
And we share a mission, which is, I think, why we're working together. Though ours maybe is more broad, we are a career training and organization and online school, and similar to NGen, we're here working to open doors for folks for brighter futures.
I've been working in this space, sort of broadly described as immigrant and refugee inclusion, for about 28 years. My PhD is in second language acquisition, and I have spent a long time thinking about ways that we can help multilingual learners rapidly get access to the English skills that they need in order to be able to accomplish their goals. And I'm excited to talk to you about that today and how this fits in with the work that we're doing with Penn Foster, specifically to unlock access to a high school credential.
And my work is in education and economic development. I've been with the Penn Foster Group now for about 6 years, where I oversee the high school product and all things high school that we do for about 100,000 students a year. And prior to that, I was responsible for re-engaging out-of-school youth in New York City, and have some experience in international development in Central and South America, and a little bit in East Africa.
So we're talking about access to a high school credential, but what we're really talking about is the future of the workforce. Right now, there are about 65 million speakers of other languages in the United States, languages other than English, which means that about 1 in 5 people in the US speak another language, which is really amazing when you think about the fact that most people born in the US only speak English. So we have a huge potential talent pool of bilingual, multilingual people who all speak multiple languages. And by 2025, multilingual workers are going to make up 20% of the US workforce. So we have speakers of other languages all over the place. However, 25 to 40% of those workers who have language skills in languages other than English earn 40% less than those who do speak English. So there is a disproportionate number of speakers of other languages in the United States who are unemployed or underemployed or undercompensated because English is a barrier to being able to earn the same wages. The average weekly salary for individuals with a high school diploma is $162 more than those who don't have a high school diploma. And when you think about this over the course of a lifetime, that's $400,000. And I think these are conservative estimates. And when we think about barriers to economic opportunity, the combination of a high school diploma and English language skills are barriers that are causing basically huge gaps in the potential for economic mobility, access to education and training, and the ability for people to advocate for themselves and their families. And the good news is that there is a way to remove these barriers and to do it rapidly and to do it at scale. And what I think is particularly interesting to the crowd here at Kale this year is that this model of helping people get English skills for a specific credential, a specific industry recognized credential or diploma is one that we can replicate. And so we're really excited today to talk about how we thought of this, why we did it, and how you can do it too. And I hope that if there are questions, you'll please put them in the chat because we'll have time to answer them afterwards. 60% of multilingual learners graduate from high school versus 85% of those who speak English as a first language. And this is the real issue that we set out to solve when we sat down and tried to figure out how to create this program that would help multilingual learners rapidly access a high school credential. Because a high school credential is required. It's required not just for 70% of all jobs, but also to access any sort of career mobility or access to further training. Now, right now in the United States, we're serving the needs of a fraction of our English learners. Traditional high school ESL programs are not meeting the needs of many high school students. They often rely on outdated and ineffective curricula. One of the reasons for this is a mismatch between learners' age and literacy levels, especially when it comes to high school. When newcomers come to the US as children, they can be enrolled in a K-12 school, and regardless of the quality of English instruction available to them, they can learn English because they're still acquiring languages as children do. By the time they get to high school, they're acquiring languages like an adult does, which means it needs to be much more targeted and much more specific. And that's not possible inside the framework of most high schools in the US. So we're, as a country, not serving the needs of this huge population of learners who really, really need to get English skills rapidly so they can get this credential so that they can be included in our society. There's also a huge shortage of providers. The good news is that we know that innovative competency-based English programs work, and they work rapidly, and they can help people get the English skills they need to access things like Penn Foster's high school credential. So what we're going to talk about today is really how we do this. So I'm going to turn it over to Alex to talk a little bit about Penn Foster's high school program.
So I want to offer a little bit more context on our high school and how it works and what we do. And then we'll get into specifically how we've partnered together. I'm very, very excited about what we do. So Penn Foster High School, we operate at a really large scale. I think we're one of the biggest, if not the biggest, online high school in the US. We'll graduate this year over 35,000 high school graduates, and they'll be of all ages, all backgrounds. It's a very diverse student body. I think we're very motivated by some of the stats that Katie just shared. I think when you think of the barriers, use the term barriers, the barriers of that get in folks' ways. I think along with not having a high school diploma, it feels like maybe having a record and maybe immigration status, and then not having are like probably the three biggest blockers, barriers to opportunity. And when you think about what it was, 66 million folks who can speak more languages, who have so much to offer, sitting behind those barriers, it's such lost opportunity. And so we're thrilled to do what we do. The way our high school works, folks enroll in our high school every single day. We're open. We very intentionally have a very low barrier to entry. We try to keep it as affordable as possible. and it's totally self-paced. So if you can imagine a high school online, fully online, going at your own pace and what works for you, and then we try to offer, try to support as many pathways as possible. Katie and I were talking, we used to be kind of a career-focused adult high school education. And so a lot of our pathways are about preparing folks for new jobs. But with all that's happened in the last few years, our demographic has shifted really quite young. And we're finding more and more learners by the day are looking for something like what we offer, as opposed to a high school experience with a fixed schedule and an on-site location and all those things that can often get in the way of folks' responsibilities and opportunities and desires. And so it's really been changing. And then we'll offer a bunch of support. I say it's fully online because you can do all the learning that way, but you can make appointments with learners, or we'll reach out to encourage you if we see certain behaviors changing. We'll offer, we have teachers, instructors, coaches, a whole sort of team of folks, hundreds and hundreds of folks who are here to support our learners. So it's a 21 credit high school program, a bunch of different pathways, and obviously accredited in multiple ways to offer that legitimacy to our students. So in this next slide, I grabbed a couple of my favorite day of the year is our graduation. We've gone back to really large in-person graduations, and it's my favorite day of the year. And so the student, I'll call him Mark, on the left, he's super shy, very, very shy. He's from Ocala, Florida. But he would let me take a picture of his hat. He wouldn't let me take a picture of him. And I loved his hat because it really sums up the students who are coming to us. Like they're going to do their own thing. Like our students are actors, and they want to get in college early, or they're impatient to join the military. They have so many dreams and ideas, and again, this sort of structure that most of us grew up with here of the high school and the time, and it just like gets in the way of what they're really trying to do. So it's been pretty thrilling to see these learners come to us, and knowing that we can offer them something better. And this middle one was a learner shared with me. This is in Spanish, but she was sharing with me her story and struggles, and what it basically says here is like, I cried sometimes, I doubted myself sometimes, but I never gave up. And there's a part of her message here where she mentions that this is the achievement of many. And I think that's the other sort of dominant motivator and feeling amongst our graduates, that they're not doing it for themselves. They're doing it to set an example for their son or for their community, or they're doing it because they just know they're capable of more. And it's just really, really neat to see the crowds around folks. And then this last one I put on here, I'll call him Jose. Obviously I'm gonna use pseudonyms here, but he's from California, but he was sharing it. Originally, his family's all from Guatemala, and I was just really touched that he explained to me that what he was wearing, he had his grandmother had made, handmade in the town that he came from in Guatemala, and so that he could sort of represent that and his village. And obviously it's clearly very beautiful. You can see it in person. So many stories and so much, but I share these just, I hope folks can appreciate the sort of the learners that are coming to us and why. And so like what motivates me most and my responsibility leading this is just that folks that give us their time are better off for it. And so I won't do all the numbers, but it's the sort of bottom right in that quadrant of that 80% of the high school grads feel that the quality of their life has improved. Like that's what we're here for. And it's quite interesting that our high school, I got to figure out a careful way to say this, but it's like people are coming to our high school for what they want to do after. It's not really for the high school. And it's such a privilege to be able to help them through that, sometimes even accelerate through that, so that they can get on to what they want to be doing. And so over time, we've been seeing, a lot of I call it a demand, or folks coming to us who really want what we're offering, but don't have a comfort level in English to come in and go through our content in the way that our learning model is set up. And so we were pretty preoccupied a couple of years ago, like, well, how can we serve these populations? How can we support the 66 million, these folks? And candidly, we weren't sure how to do it, and we weren't sure the best way. I knew what I didn't want to do is what folks often do, of just putting two languages side by side. Here's your lesson in English, and oh, we did you a favor and we translated it for you in your language next to it. I know enough about pedagogy and education to know that we could do better. And so we were looking around and we weren't sure how we wanted to approach it, and learned of the work, had long known of the work that NGen was doing, and especially with the career focus that we shared, with a pretty sort of beautiful kind of bite-sized English language acquisition solution that they had. We thought, well, let's just try something together. It was really the sort of spirit and discovery that brought us together on this program.
And we were so excited to partner with Penn Foster on this because one of the things that makes the way NGen approaches language instruction different is that it's completely personalized. It's tied to learners' own goals. And our whole mission is to help them in a competency-based way. Learning a language is learning a skill. It's much more like learning to play a sport or learning to play a musical instrument than studying a content area, which is why traditional approaches where you start at the beginning and you learn the names of the animals at the zoo, and then you learn the names of the days of the week and everything goes in an order, those make sense for organizing a curriculum into building blocks. They don't make sense for helping real human beings actually learn a language, especially with the population that Penn Foster wants to serve, either high school students who have other things they want to do where they need to do high school their own way, or people who have had interrupted formal education who are coming back to high school and trying to finish it while they're working and taking care of kids and working multiple jobs. They don't have time to learn the names of the animals at the zoo unless they want to become a zookeeper. They need to understand the language skills they need to be successful in their high school classes and successful in their world. And the truth is that learning a language is one of the hardest things we ask adult humans to do. It's why most people have tried learning another language, like, oh, I'll just learn Italian. And then you do it, and then you realize, oh, that's not going to work. It's impossible. But it's not impossible. And it has to happen for newcomers to the United States, for immigrants, for refugees, for speakers of other languages. They have to be able to learn English so that they can be included. So when we started working with Penn Foster, we realized that we could help people get the language skills they needed rapidly at their own pace to transition into Penn Foster's program, not based on a time schedule, but based on their own language competency developing. So our platform is personalized. It's English for specific purposes. We use real-world content, and it's very clear to the learners and also to the Penn Foster program how they're developing their proficiency and how they're moving into the levels that they need to, I'm sorry, I'm doing this presentation from a hotel room and housekeeping has not stopped knocking at my door. I just need to tell them that I'm in the middle of the presentation. Just 1 second. I'm sorry, it's okay. My room is fine. Thank you. Sorry, I thought they would just go away, but I think she could hear me and she was being very persistent. So anyway, moving on to the next slide. So our whole concept for how to do this is that we can fundamentally reshape how we integrate English into high school in 3 key steps. The first is de-siloing our approach to ESL. Instead of separating English learners into ESL classes, we can integrate English instruction with the high school content areas. We can offer on-demand access. We're not requiring that everybody spend 7 hours a day in person. We're letting them do this on their own schedules around their own time constraints and at their own pace. And we can champion digital skills. And I think it's also worth pointing out here that one of the obstacles to offering language instruction digitally that I've heard over the course of my career is, oh, you can't teach language online. Like English language learners don't have digital skills, or they don't have email addresses, or it's too hard. And I will tell you, 4 years post-pandemic into whatever era of the pandemic we're in right now, I hear that less. Like everybody sort of realized that you can use technology for instruction. And actually, when people do have digital literacy gaps, it's incumbent upon the educators to make sure that digital literacy is actually included in the instruction that is being offered, because there is not a single job that doesn't require the use of technology. There isn't an educational program that doesn't require the use of technology, but we do make sure that all of our learners have the digital skills they need to be successful in an online course like Penn Foster's high school program. So whenever we're designing a program like this, it's really important to start with who's learning English. What is their starting proficiency level? Do they also need to work on literacy skills and numeracy skills? Do they need to work on writing skills? What are the academic tasks they need to complete? Can we find real examples of the language they will use? And this is what we did for the high school diploma. We made sure we knew what would be required to participate fully in the program. And then we built a flexible competency-based model that could help learners wherever they were starting. This took a while to actually build, and I believe it is the only program that does this. You can start this program at any level of language proficiency. We can help you if you are a brand new beginning English learner, and we can help you if you have intermediate English skills and you just need some support. And no matter where you are, the program adapts to your needs. This is an example of how we do it. So we started with the actual content in Penn Foster's program, and then we turned that content into English lessons. So I just went through and pulled out an example on how to round numbers. This is comes from a math course. Learners are understanding how rounding numbers works. If you were going to teach somebody how to round numbers in English, they would need to understand things like all of the keywords in this lesson, what rounding numbers are, what the exact number is, how they need to be able to understand the units that are being talked about in here in terms of money and shopping and counting. And so what we've done is taken that authentic content and turned it into an English lesson. So learners are using pieces of the Penn Foster High School curriculum to learn the English building blocks they'll need to then later go and finish the Penn Foster curriculum. And with the example I'm just giving, in this lesson, these are the key vocabulary words. They need to understand the word counting, everyday lives, exact, figure something out, how long, probably, quick, and rounding. And what we do is give them simplified definitions for these words. We translate them in context. We can actually support learners who speak any language. This Penn Foster program is focused specifically on Spanish speakers, but this approach works for people who speak any language other than English. And it can also work for any type of on-ramp to any type of credential program or career training program. And then it gets a little more complicated. As learners' proficiency level improves, the content that they're working with becomes more complex. And all of this adapts in real time to support their language needs as they're developing language skills. So this is coming from a science lesson, again, coming from Penn Foster's high school curriculum. These are the keywords you need to understand this lesson on creating hypotheses. You need to understand words like falsifiable and presence and conduct. Learners who are enrolled in our program not only have access to our platform, the NGen platform, as an on-ramp to Penn Foster, they have it as a wraparound support while they're enrolled in the program. So once learners are working on this course on hypothesis testing inside of their high school experience, if they want to remember what the word falsifiable means or the context where they first saw it or how to define variables, they just come back to our platform, they find the lesson, and they can refresh their memory. So we're supporting the language development that they need to understand the core content. And this model, as I said before, is one that is repeatable, it's scalable, and it's a super efficient way of helping people get the skills that they need in a personal way to be able to accomplish their goals. This is a chart that actually shows how it works. And I'm not sure how much detail to go into in this chart, or if we have any questions from anybody who's here who wants to know how this works. But the high level description of what's happening here is that there are two pathways for learners when they come to us. based on their proficiency level. So if their level is beginner or high beginner, we give them English skills before we push them into the high school program. When they get to the upper end of the intermediate level, we push them into the high school program and we offer wraparound supports, and they can enter into that high school program at any point. Alex and I spent a lot of time explaining this model to a lot of people to get them to understand how it worked. We thought that this diagram was probably the most useful. I'm not sure, Alex, if you want to add anything about this.
I maybe just a little bit. So the idea is once we get them started, there's a quick assessment, which is important, a really quick assessment. And one interesting scenario actually that you didn't mention is folks will come in, take it, and they might find, wow, like I know more than I thought I did. And they'll just jump right into it, and they'll get to benefit from the reinforcement and the additional lessons of vocabulary. When it is actually quite humbling looking at that last side of things like supernatural and falsifiable. I saw that. I thought we should go make sure we're doing enough scaffolding for everybody, But so you come in, you take an assessment, and for some folks, they're really just going to work on building confidence in English. Once they sort of get to the Lexile levels and an area where we think like, yeah, they can confidently work through the high school curriculum. And then the point of the courses we built together to help reinforce the concepts, reinforce the vocabulary rather of the concepts that come through in the curriculum. So
yeah, and I'm glad you made that point, that it's not predetermined that every English language learner has to work with us first. We assess their proficiency level, and then we put them into the path that makes the most sense for them. And so some of them can go directly into the high school experience. And one of the things we've been trying to figure out, looking back on the first year plus of data, is like, do we have these levels figured out correctly? Like, and are learners at the right level when they're moving? And do they need additional supports? Because like I said, no one had ever tried to do this before. And this is the model that we thought would work, and it seems to really be working, which is exciting. So in the last 12 months, and again, this is a new program, these numbers are small, there's a lot of opportunity here. But in the last 12 months, we've had almost 200 learners engaged with this preparation program. 150 of those at this point in the last, where we are right now in the year, have taken 2 comprehensive proficiency assessments, and 60% of them have improved at least 1 entire proficiency level. That's the equivalent of hundreds of hours of instruction when you map the level improvement to traditional methods of language learning, and nearly 20% have improved 2 or more levels. The thing that I think is so exciting is that these learners have been assessed on almost 500 unique units. And a unit is basically like a module on a specific topic. So we have all those topics mapped to hypothesis testing and numeracy and understanding rounding and counting and algebra and the Intro to Psychology course that's part of the high school curriculum. But we also have units on everything from data analysis, engineering, cybersecurity, allied healthcare, veterinary technicians, specific careers in healthcare, specific careers in education. And learners are all finding that content and working on that too. So this is really providing them with the English skills, not just to be successful in their high school program, but to be successful in whatever they want to be able to do with English after high school, which speaks to the Penn Foster model, which is thinking about, specific career preparation, helping people get high school because it is a step on the road to accomplish something else. And we're able to pull that through so that the English upskilling they're getting is also tied to their real world goals. And this diversity of content, 200 learners are taking 500 unique units. Everybody's getting basically a personalized pathway to the English instruction they need for whatever it is they want to be able to do. And in the last 12 months, we've moved 106 learners into that Penn Foster High School program. So they're in there working on high school, which is awesome.
And they're doing great. When they're in, I should have added this, but we look at sort of the grades and how they're doing once they're in the core curriculum in high school, and in many ways they're outperforming the average student. So it's not a big surprise, but great, really cool to see.
It's awesome. And we're hearing the same thing from the learners. So we assess all of our learners every year, and then we also offer a survey. And the survey, I mean, our larger survey went out to 15,000 learners, and we had about a 15% response rate. I think it's actually the largest survey of multilingual learners that's ever been conducted in the United States. And when we surveyed the Penn Foster learners, this went out to about 170 learners. 35 of them responded, which is a great response rate when you think about a survey that you don't have to actually respond to, that comes to you via email. 81% of them report that NGen is helping them more than an in-person course, which doesn't come as a surprise because they're coming to us because a self-paced digital course makes more sense for them. But 88% report improved confidence, 94% report improved job skills, 100% report improved digital skills. They're getting the digital skills they need to then go be successful in their Penn Foster High School course. And then they're also reporting things like they're better able to communicate with colleagues, they're better able to navigate life, they're better able to help their families, and they give us specific examples. As a result, I enrolled to finish high school. I speak with more confidence, and it has definitely helped me a lot. Thank you. I'm very happy. I've not yet achieved my goals, but I'm closer. I'm able to help my family by explaining notes that arrive in English. I understand my bosses much better. Like, to go back to the stats we used at the beginning of the talk, we know that English is a huge obstacle to millions and millions of people who have so much talent to share in our communities, in our culture, in our economy, in our workplaces. And like I said, they're already multilingual. They speak multiple languages fluently. We're helping them get the English skills they need to be able to do all of the jobs they want to be able to do in multiple languages. So our communities of care can reflect the people that live in them. So our educators can speak in multiple languages to the learners that they're serving. The exponential benefits of a program like this can't be overstated. And it's really, really exciting to be here at this point, thinking back to the early days of putting this together with Penn Foster, to just show when you really tightly couple English upskilling with a credential program, you can drive massive change for individuals and for all of us. I don't know, Alex, if you want to add anything.
It's just maybe worth saying a little more on that because that previous slide is really what it's all about. And that's what gets me the most excited. Like 400, increased earnings and $400,000 over lifetime is a very big deal. And increased job opportunities and the ability to pursue higher education and all of that, all of the things that come once you're opening doors to different opportunities is great. But like, I shouldn't say but. And what gets me the most excited is how our learners' self-perception changes, how they doubt their own doubt, and how they start you saw the numbers on like the confidence, and they realize, no, I am not what they said I was. I am not. They called me a dropout. And it's the most powerful part. And so it's just really cool to see that that's what came through. Because maybe it's harder to quantify, but like that's really the magic. And so wonderful that NGen has helped us be able to reach additional populations to that end. So it's really thrilling to see and honored to be a part of.
We think so too. And like I said, we're really good at getting people English skills, but making sure they can use those skills to accomplish their goals is the most important piece. And by working with you, they can get this credential that can unlock so much opportunity. And anybody who's seeking out an online high school is doing it because they're not being served by the traditional high school that they're enrolled in for one reason or another. And knowing that we can take all of those learners and not just serve them, but serve them in a way that results in the pictures you had on that earlier slide is really really awesome. Do we have any questions from anybody that we should answer?
I haven't seen any come through the chat yet. I have a question, but I don't know if that's appropriate.
You can ask your question.
Okay, just because we started talking about it, I didn't get the answer. So when we set this up, are you all curated like a pretty beautiful sort of curriculum to help folks master English at like a really cool pace and like get ready for our core content. And then we built courses together to help sort of reinforce some elements along the way. But you all have, I mean, you have a massive repository that grows by the, I don't know, week or what, but,
Yes.
with really interesting stuff. And so I'm curious, like, and so our learners can go anywhere. They can follow their curiosities. And so I'm curious if you happen to know like what sort of content areas are some of the learners venturing into beyond what we've tried to guide them to.
So that was that list of 491 different,
Okay.
and I can share it with you actually, but things like cybersecurity, software engineering, veterinary technology, every kind of allied healthcare career. So like English for becoming a pharmacy tech, English for becoming a phlebotomist, English for basic life support, English for careers in allied healthcare, English for early childhood education, English for welding. All of these are on that list of things where your learners have not just like taken a lesson, but they've gone through and finished like 10, 20, or 30 lessons on this topic and taken a test on the content. I didn't even look or include where they go all the way up to the test and don't take the test, because we have some of those too. So they really and truly are exploring, like, more than in many other programs like this, the depth and breadth of our content library. Like I pulled all the data yesterday, and then I was making a pivot table just by the course titles. And normally I get to like 200 and it stops, and I'm just like scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And I was like, there's almost 500 unique like tests that were taken in the platform. It's so awesome. And I think
Yeah.
do some really cool stuff to reverse engineer what they're interested in and finding ways to like map that to what they're able to do with you guys too.
Yeah, those are almost all areas that we offer training for too. And so
Yeah, so being
how
able to
cool if
tie
we
it
could
together.
introduce that. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be really, really cool.
I noticed in that chart, the one that you said is like the weird chart to read. But I did notice that it was indicating that the language acquisition time was about 60 days. And I'm guessing that is because you're not starting with animals. You're starting with, this is the language you need to know.
That's actually a great question. And
Yeah.
because this is competency based, we built regular assessments into the program, and the recommended interval based on how much time learners are spending in the platform is 60 days, because we've seen learners come in who are right at the cusp of being ready to work on the high school curriculum,
Mm.
who need just a little bit of English and some reinforcement, and then they're ready to go. And we didn't want to artificially hold them back. So what I would say is that based on their starting proficiency level, and we are not just starting with animals, they sometimes are ready in a few months, sometimes more like 6 to 9 months, but that we're getting them through the English part and into the high school part faster than anybody else is.
I would love, I would love to see like, because I'm guessing that if you're working on a specific topic, and so like something I would be familiar with from high school was algebra. And if you're getting all of the concept words for algebra, then when you go to take that algebra class, you're like ahead of the curve
Yes,
because now you understand the vocabulary since you had to learn the vocabulary, which you normally may not learn until you're doing it. And I would
exactly.
love to see if there is that positive outcome for people who have worked on this sort of competency, language competency when it comes to actually learning the materials.
Yes, I mean, from other research, there definitely
Yeah.
is an advantage, because you can't teach a language without some kind of content.
Right.
So, like, we're just wasting your time if we're teaching you about, we to go back to the animals at the zoo, but like teaching you that, or teaching you about literature, which often gets used in language classes, like making you learn something, like making you read Robert Frost poems, when you really need to learn the language behind algebra. And so then you go to algebra and you know all of the Robert Frost poem language, but you don't have any idea what the algebra words are. The
Right.
other thing too is that a lot of the time when we're working with speakers of other languages who are high school aged, they've already learned some of this stuff. They've learned it already, and we're making them do it again because we don't have a perfect system for figuring out what year you are, because different countries teach math at different levels. But imagine you're trying to learn English And we're teaching you the English around a math that you already know. You're going
Yeah.
to learn the English a lot faster because you understand the content first. And so it
And
works both ways. And it's
right.
really, really much better to combine all this stuff together than it is to be doing it all in separate silos.
And even in that example, your brain is now revisiting that math that you know
Yes.
and kind of like doing a warm up. That's
100%. And it's like
wow.
context. Context is important for anybody to understand anything. It's why you can, explain a really complex statistical concept, but if you're explaining it in terms that that are interesting to you, like if I'm explaining it to you in the context of baseball and who's likely to be positioned against somebody else in this baseball tournament, and like you love baseball, you understand it. But if I were explaining that same statistical concept to you, but what I was talking about was a placebo effect for drugs being tested by the FDA, you would just like completely check out and not care at all. And I lost the opportunity to teach you something in a way that was interesting to you so that you would get it. And
Right.
language is the same exact thing. And the context is the part that we should get for free, because the way we have large language models and artificial intelligence and the way that we can like map people's interests to what we give them, we should be using all of that to make learning as interesting and as exciting as possible for our learners.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know where we are with time, or if
We
there are,
have, sorry, about 10 minutes.
well, we don't have to use the whole time if we don't have any more questions. If anybody watching wants to ask us questions, here are our email addresses. Alex and I would like nothing better than to follow up with anybody who has questions about how we designed this or are the best practices we've learned from doing it.
I'd also like to say that I'm really impressed with your thoughtful approach, how it was student centered. I love that you said, we know how other people are doing this, but we want to take it a step further. We want to think about it in a more in-depth way, and that approach to me was just really significant. And it's the kind of work that really impresses me and that I'm glad that you came to share with others. It just was fantastic. So thank you so much for your presentation today. And if I think it was just great that you shared this content with us. It just was a joy. And I hope that everybody has enjoyed it and will continue to enjoy it. Let's not forget that the content will be available online for viewing or reviewing for about 90 days to people that are here registered for the conference, and perhaps to members after that. And thank you so much for your participation, and thank you so much to
Thank you.
Alex and Katie for your presentation. It was fantastic.
Thank you so much, and thank you for moderating.
Ah, thanks.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good day.